Hello and welcome to the 24th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Very, very fascinating readings again this week. I'm going to start with the first reading, and I want to go to the episode that precedes the episode that we have in the first reading, where Moses is sent down because the people have created the golden calf. Now, I have been influenced a lot by movies, and one of the movies that I remember watching from a very, very young age was the Ten Commandments. You remember it? And especially the incident, there are many incidents in that movie of the Ten Commandments, but I remember when watching when Moses goes up Mount Sinai and God comes to Moses and starts to give him the Ten Commandments, and Moses is chiseling the Ten Commandments on the tablets. For some reason, I thought before I went into seminary that actually is what happened. That Moses went up the mountain, and God came to Moses, and God spoke to Moses in that manner. But that is Hollywood. That would not be a very prudent way to look at how we got the Decalogue, how we got the 10 words, how we got the 10 commandments. So let us reflect a little bit on how we came up with these 10 commandments. There is an event in the history of the people of Israel that was very, very formative. It was a painful experience, and we all know what that is. It is their Egyptian experience. That Egyptian experience, in a way, was very instrumental in the formation of the nation of Israel. And as we know, after they cross over, it was when they make this covenant with God that they become known as the people of God, or the nation of Israel. But I want to go back to this Egyptian experience and how formative it was. So the question is, do you really think that Moses went up the mountain and God spoke to Moses and Moses wrote down the commandments? Yeah, that's one way of thinking about it. The other way of thinking about it, and this is what I want to propose to you, is this. What do the 10 commandments mean? In a very, very simple way, I would have you think of the 10 commandments in this way. They simply say, we are not the Egyptians. Everything about the 10 commandments says we are not the Egyptians. And whenever we try to become like the Egyptians, sorry, my Egyptian brothers, we have to remind ourselves we are not. What do I mean by this? Look at the 10 commandments. Moses used that Egyptian experience as a foil to build a new nation. So Israel was going to be the antithesis of the Egyptian experience. So the Egyptians had many gods. In the new Israel, there is one God. So the Egyptians would call upon the names of their gods left, right, and center. In Israel, you shall not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. We don't even mention the name of God. So it is the opposite. In Egypt, the family unit was absolutely and totally broken. They were being bred like animals. In the new Israel, honor your father and your mother. In the old nation, in the Egyptian experience, life meant nothing. They would be killed at will. Thou shalt not kill. In the Egyptian experience, maybe they would steal. People would take things that do not belong to them. Thou shalt not steal. So you see what is happening. Moses is using part of that Egyptian experience to build a new nation. And is reminding the people, let us always remember not to be like, not to repeat our past, a past that we abhor, right? In today's gospel passage, in the first reading, God tells Moses to go back down because the people have become depraved. That means the people are slowly becoming what they hated the most. So in the Egyptian experience, they had, these guards and domesticated guards, I would say. Now that they're in the desert, they begin to build this golden calf. Something that happened in Egypt, and not only about the golden calf, it is everything that it represents, everything that it destroys because of having this golden calf is the same thing that was happening in Egypt. And so God sends Moses down to go and remind the people, hey, let us check ourselves, okay? Let us check ourselves because we don't want to go back there. Again, think the Ten Commandments are building a new community. Let us bring it to our own time and space. There is this Declaration of Independence that we celebrate. What do you suppose was happening in the Declaration of Independence? Do you think that the founding fathers of the United States had God speak to them about the Declaration of Independence? I think they used their experience from the United Kingdom, with the United Kingdom, to build a new nation. So they begin with this Declaration of Independence and say, we behold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And then it goes on at the end that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Whom are they talking to, the founding fathers? That we're going to choose our governments. We're going to choose our leaders. This United States, in a way, is saying no to the United Kingdom. That no, you have kings over here, we're going to choose our own leaders. Again, in the building of this new nation, they used this very painful experience. Now, how does this preach to you and I, or for you and I? A quick story here before I go into the preaching of this. Marianne, my wife, after her first marriage ended, she and her best friend, Cheryl, went out for coffee. And Cheryl took out a piece of paper, slammed it on the desk, on the table at the coffee shop, and said, we need to write down what you want in the next man, because we are not going to go back to what we just came from. It was so painful an experience, a marriage, that we need to set new rules. So Marianne and her friend wrote down bullet points, put boxes about what she wanted clearly in a new relationship. And she would go out, she told me, she would go out and she would date somebody. When she came home, she would pick out that piece of paper and say, no, if you didn't check all the boxes, you are a no-go. Guess who checked all the boxes? Voila! But I use that example to say, you need to write down some things that will help you not become the person you left, not become the thing that you abhor. How many times have you and I heard that people who are born into abusive families end up in an abusive relationship? So the question, therefore, that I want to ask, and it's a very pointed question, is what breaks the cycle for you? The Ten Commandments break the cycle for the people of Israel, saying, no, we are not going to be like the Egyptians, and we're going to be something else. This new covenant that Marianne makes with her friend, that what she will look for in a spouse, breaks the cycle of violence or an appreciation that was in the previous relationship. So I think this is a very, very powerful message. Until you and I sit down and actually write down some things and pray over them, we might just end up repeating the cycle of violence, repeating things that we cannot even stand ourselves. the first reading invites us to seriously take a serious look. When do we become depraved? We become depraved when we totally forget that now we are in a new land with a new experience and we have to work at it. Here's the thing: living these commandments, being in this new nation, it would take a lot of work. A lot of work. And the people have to remind themselves every time, take out the 10 commandments and read them out aloud to remind themselves so that they can work on the things that they do not turn out to be like the Egyptians. For example, in the Egyptian experience, right? Their life, of course, I said, meant nothing. How are they treating the sinners and the lepers in the new land? How are they treating the orphan, the stranger, and the poor? Are they treating the orphan, stranger, and the poor the very same way they were treated in Israel, in Egypt? And the question is, haven't you learned something? Well, if you don't write it down, if you don't remind yourself of it, if you don't work at it, you will find yourself in the same cycle. Okay. Let's push over to the gospel passage. I'm running out of time. One thing runs through the gospel passages, and it is the word lost. Lost coin, lost sheep, lost son. Because I'm running out of time and I gotta go celebrate Mass, I want you to think about what is happening in the gospel passage. The sinners and the tax collectors are coming to Jesus. The lost ones are coming to Jesus, and the Pharisees are getting mad. And Jesus says to them, you have no idea the joy that fills the heart of God when he sees one of these who are lost come back. May we create churches and spaces of worship that actually invite people to come back. No questions asked. Questions come later if they need to arise. But whether the prodigal son was truly sorry or not sorry at all, what is important here to look at in these stories is, at least in the story of the prodigal son, is the emptiness of the father from the moment the son left. Where does God want you? Forget the brother and everybody else. Where does God want you? In the house. In the house. And that gives God great joy. God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.